Hey, we're going to look at eyewitness testimony. So one of the main areas for this is looking at how memory is affected for eyewitnesses of crimes. The key study is the Loftus and Palmer. Um, so Loftus and Palmer looked at it's a lab experiment where they got five groups of 9, so 45 students, and they got them to watch 7 clips of car crashes. And then they were asked a series of questions, and the critical question was, how fast was the car traveling when it X? So the 5 verbs were smashed, collided, contacted, hit, and bumped. And what they found was if you were asked how fast were the car going when they smashed into the other car, the speed estimation was higher at 40.8 compared to contacted at 31.8. Now, the idea is that that verb creates a more kind of intense schema of what the car crash was like, and therefore you're more likely going to estimate a higher speed. A week later, they had a group of 150, 3 groups of 50, and these were shown a car crash again, but they were asked, did you see any broken glass? And in the smash condition, 16 out of 50 remember seeing broken glass. In the hit condition, 7 out of 50 remember seeing broken glass. And in the control group, 6 remember seeing broken glass. However, there wasn't any broken glass. However, people have remembered seeing broken glass, and it was higher if the verb was smashed. Because when you think about smashed, it makes you have a schema, say, of an image, there might be broken glass everywhere. Now, that was one study into how leading questions can affect eyewitnesses. Loftus also did a study with Pickerel in 2003, where they helped to create a false memory of Bugs Bunny, and they got these participants who'd been to Disneyland and had the room laid out with like cartoon characters of Bugs Bunny, headed logo paper, things like this, and they got people to recall their experience of Disneyland. And a lot of these people did remember seeing Bugs Bunny, meeting Bugs Bunny for pictures, shaking hands with Bugs Bunny, even though that's impossible because Bugs Bunny isn't a Disneyland character. It just shows that how memory can be affected by information, which is what Loftus and Pickrell found in 1995 with post-event discussions, that they could kind of almost implant memories into people, where around 30% of participants in the study remembered being lost in a shopping mall when they were age 5. Now, in terms of anxiety levels, the Yerkes-Dodson law, which is like an inverted U shape, suggests that if you have a really high level of anxiety, your performance will be worse. Likewise, if you had a really low level of anxiety. And Yerkes-Dodson law suggests that in the middle, there's kind of an optimal level. However, the lab-based studies kind of suggest this as well. But the anxiety isn't really that high in the lab-based study. In real-life studies like Christiansen and Hubernetti, which was 110 witnesses of 22 real-life bank robberies, they found that the victims had a 75% accurate recall, even up to 15 months later. And that would be with a high anxiety level. Also, research by Yuli and Kutzall, 1986, which was a field experiment. They found that real-life witnesses to a shooting in Vancouver were 88% accurate, in the most stress condition, compared to 75% who weren't that stressed. So again, it shows that memory can be very accurate in the real life situations where you experience a lot of stress and anxiety compared to the lab-based research. There's other models of arousal, like the catastrophe theory, that suggests that anxiety goes up to a point, so performance will be high, and then it just dramatically drops off a cliff. So some of the techniques used for interviewing witnesses as a cognitive interview. Now, there are three different types. You've got the standard police interview, and you've got the cognitive interview that looks at things like reverse the order, change perspective, recall everything, context reinstatement. Then you've got the modified cognitive interview that takes out the change the perspective part, because kids typically are more egocentric. They can't put themselves in someone else's shoes. Then you've got the enhanced cognitive interview that adds different features to the interview, such as the witness should control the flow of information. So no leading questions. Witnesses must not be distracted by interruptions when recalling. The witness should recall slowly and focus strongly on an image. Now, Geiselman and Fisher came up with this, the 4 stages of the cognitive interview. And the idea is that by accessing different memory cues using the kind of encoding specificity principle, you could therefore access more information, more accurate information. Now, as well as maybe getting more accurate information, you might also get more confabulation, where they're remembering things not that accurately. But it is an effective way, and you would need to be trained in order to carry this out. Probably a more thorough way of interviewing someone. And then also, if like one of the components of the reverse the order, that's a lot harder to do, because you've got to think backwards. So therefore, it might allow more information to come to the forefront. So in terms of reliability, the eyewitness testimony is frequently questioned due to things like leading questions or stress. That can have an effect on an eyewitness. And also, you've got to think of ethical issues, like, it's unethical, obviously, to implant false memory into somebody. And you've also got to be thinking about what sort of questions you might ask someone, because you can't ask leading questions or misleading questions. So these are some of the things you need to think about when you're looking at eyewitness testimony. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next slide.